We have mentioned that our moral intuitions may in some sense be unreliable. Indeed, studies show that there are framing effects. For example, people will respond differently to moral dilemmas depending on whether the scenario is presented in the first or third person. Even professional philosophers are subject to this effect. Moreover, our moral intuitions appear to fall victim to self-serving reasoning. A survey from the News and World Report asked, if someone sues you and you win the case, should he pay your legal costs? 85% of respondents answered yes. However, when asked, if you sue someone and lose the case, should you pay his costs? Only 44% answered yes. We are also similarly deceived by our group identity. When presented a policy that we don't think is fair, we are likely to switch our judgment entirely if we are then presented with the additional information that it was proposed by our favourite political party. The list of all the discoveries on our faulty ethical perceptions could go on a while. Here we wish to highlight, from the utilitarian perspective, a specific instance of moral confusion that is particularly pernicious and easy to make. Confusing norms with morality. For us, rules, norms and societal pressures are practically all created by utilitarian reasoning. They are products of a utilitarian principle, and they instrumentally serve the goal of maximizing happiness. For example, we decide to impose the rule "do not kill" in our societies because on average this imposition produces happiness. Now, what often happens is that the norms we perpetuate through our societies get ingrained in our moral intuitions and ultimately are confused by us with morality itself. We end up identifying morality with norms and customs. This error is most evident in extremists. Extreme doctrines often take norms or ideas that were created for underlying utilitarian reasons, misinterpret them, and then identify morality itself with a set of norms. With their ethical system, anybody who disobeys a rule is then immediately immoral. Of course, this moral confusion creates conflict and flames tribalism. But not only extremists make this mistake. For instance, take the societal rule that incest is prohibited, and take the true case of Danielle Haney and Nick Cameron, a half-brother-sister pair living in the UK, who met as adults and instantly fell in love. And for the sake of argument, let's also say that Nick had a vasectomy or Danielle was infertile. Would it be immoral for them to consume their love? Well, let's do the eudaimonic calculus. By consuming their love, some people might look at them strangely. On the flip side, they get to live their love to the fullest, without really harming anyone in the process. This appears to tilt the calculations to the positive side, making their action moral. But what about the rule erosion component? They are definitely infringing on a societal rule. Incidentally, this is also a case where breaking the societal rule against incest would probably add a positive instead of a negative rule erosion component in the eudaimonic calculus, given that it would be eroding a rule in a case where it brings suffering. Indeed, supposing that overall the societal rule against incest brings happiness, certainly it would not cost us much as a society to decriminalize specific cases that would bring sadness, such as the one discussed. So the eudaimonic calculus seems to tell us that the action would be perfectly moral. Thus, if our initial gut reaction was that of deeming the action immoral, we might be confusing morality with customs and norms. An interesting study showcases this mistake quite well. Students were asked if it was okay for a brother and sister to make love in a similar setting to the one just analysed. Their immediate intuitive response was that the action was immoral. But when asked why the action was immoral, they struggled to find a reason. Their moral intuitions were automatically firing off with the accepted cultural/biological answer, with no care for a rational justification. A phenomenon that has been branded moral dumbfounding. This goes to show that you don't have to be an extremist to make the mistake of identifying societal rules with morality. Two little side notes. The paradigm we have presented of confusing morality with a rule may also be extended to biological biases, by seeing our biological adaptations as a kind of rule that once was useful for our well-being, and that unconsciously we abide to, but in the present day might cause more harm than good. Also, this tendency to identify morality with societal customs may explain why some abstract counterexamples to utilitarianism are so popular. They quote-unquote exploit this automatic response in our moral intuitions to give us the feeling that an action that produces happiness is wrong because it goes against conventional beliefs. Now, all of this does not mean that our moral intuitions should be trashed or that they are dumb. Quite the opposite. The reason why they give a quick judgment is that in an ordinary life setting, that is what we need. We can't stop and think if we really ought to perform every action we take. In a sense, the automatic intuitions themselves are abiding by the utility principle, by filtering huge amounts of information in a rapid answer for us to perform. And in a day-to-day setting, this almost always leads us to perform positive utility actions by following societal rules. But if, for example, we wanted to use our moral intuitions to write policy, then they would be of less use. To conclude, our biases and the problems they pose should not discourage us from being moral. We have many other biases that pertain to more scientific domains, where we have managed to make great progress anyway. Plus, we have a formidable ally that can distill our moral intuitions: reason. Case in point, one simple way to use reason when confronted with a moral issue is to question our initial gut response. Why do I perceive this act as being immoral? If we struggle to come up with answers, we may be experiencing the aforementioned moral dumbfounding, a symptom of the fact that our initial moral judgment may be unreliable, and then we can update it. With this, we are just touching the surface of what reason can do for us. We will see more along the way.